Hi, I am Rachel Meliotis, a senior editor at O'Reilly Media, and I'm here at Velocity, New York 2013 with Jonathan Klein, a software engineer at Etsy. Thanks for joining me.
No problem.
So in your session, you're demoing a hosted version of WebPagetest from Etsy, and you develop it for monitoring pages and URLs. Tell me a little bit about the tool.
Sure, so we're going to talk both about hosted WebPagetest as well as a tool we're open sourcing called WPT Script, and it's essentially a driver for WebPagetest. So you can use it to automate testing and generate essentially large batches of URLs that test various sites and then aggregate the data.
Interesting. So can you tell me a little bit about how this has actually helped Etsy?
Sure, so right now WebPagetest doesn't have any automation built in, and this allows us to do more long-term trending of performance over time. And that's something that's been really helpful for us, similar to a Catchpoint or a Keynote or a Gomez, but it's in-house. We can do it at much higher volumes at much lower cost.
That's really great. So I believe you made it open source.
Yep, we're going to press that button tomorrow.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about why you made that decision.
We're big into open source at Etsy. We love to open source all of our tools as much as we can, primarily to get contributions from the community as well as just share the tools that have been useful for us. So it's something we really believe in and we want to do more of.
We're fans of open source as well, as you know, so that's great. So sort of two parts of this question. How do you think it will be used by other people, and how do you hope it will be used?
Yeah, I think that the hope is that it will be an augmentation tool for existing monitoring, right? So people who want to do more complex scripting or want to hit a lot of URLs very frequently, but don't want to pay the high costs that some paid synthetic vendors can charge.
Okay.
So that's, I think, where it's likely to be used. And I'd love to see people really innovate on the product and see what we can do, what we can leverage either with existing features of WebPagetest or use it as a platform to kind of develop more functionality in WebPagetest. And I would like to be surprised by what people are able to use it for.
Yeah, definitely. And the good news is that usually happens with open source.
Yeah.
So I know that you work on performance and scalability at Etsy. Can you talk about sort of some big performance and scalability issues that you've had and how you've overcome them?
Sure. I guess there's two classes of problems. One is on the back end, one's on the front end. On the back end, our big problem is we have a sharded MySQL database system, essentially. Mm-hmm. And right now, all of our database queries happen in series. So if you talk to 10 different shards for data, that takes a lot of time. So we're working right now to parallelize those requests and make that stuff in parallel and not have to worry about if you're fetching user avatars from 20 different shards, it's going to take a long time. So that's the back end. On the front end, what we're seeing now is pages getting heavier like they are across the entire web, as well as rendering issues. There were a couple great talks earlier today about that exact problem and how can we avoid hitching and jank on the pages and really make things scroll smoothly and work well on mobile.
Interesting. So where do you hope web performance goes over the next few years?
I think the biggest thing that could really help is getting people to adopt the new standards that are being proposed right now and being worked on right now. So a great example of that is HTTP 2.0. And that's something that has really wide support across all different browser vendors, but the standard is still being finalized and it's not still widely supported across every single option out there in terms of browsers. So I'd love to see that adoption increase, and then in terms of things like prefetching as well and WebP and these technologies that are going to make a huge impact on the web but just don't have the support yet.
So how do you think support will be earned? Is it just going through the process of standardization, or do you think people will see examples and then be like, oh, I want my stuff to do that too?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of two different classes of standards. One are very uncontroversial. I think HTTP 2.0 is in that class where everyone loves it. Some of them are more controversial. So WebP is a great example there where Firefox has been kind of dragging their heels a little bit on implementing it. And they have good reasons for that, but how can we as a community overcome those reasons and make something that's really materially better for everyone and then get people to adopt that? So I think on the one side, it's just a question of going through the process and getting the standards implemented. On the other side, it's let's work together to actually make these something that everyone would want to implement.
Interesting. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Thank you for joining me.
No problem.